The stars outside the window looked cold and distant. Kang Taeho stood at his post near the door of the royal quarters, his hands behind his back, his face showing nothing. He had been standing there for 4 hours. His legs hurt, his back was stiff, but he did not move. This was his job now. Protect the princess, watch the door, say nothing. The diplomatic ship Horizon's Edge moved slowly through space, carrying important passengers back to their homeworlds. The most important passenger was Princess Lyra of Volantis. She was the daughter of the Volantian king, and she was returning home after signing a peace agreement with the Galactic Union. Taeho had seen her only a few times. She was beautiful in a strange way. Her skin was pale violet, like the color of flowers he remembered from Earth. Her hair was silver and seemed to glow softly in any light. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of black water, but she never looked at him, not once. To her, he was nothing, just a human, just a guard. The Volantians thought humans were primitive creatures, they lived short lives, they had no special powers, they could not read minds or feel the emotions of others like Volantians could. To the galaxy, humans were new and unimportant. Taeho did not let this bother him. He had a job to do, and he would do it well. Captain Yoon So-jin had given him this assignment personally. She was a stern woman with gray in her hair and scars on her hands. She had fought in the first contact wars, back when humans were just learning that they were not alone in the universe. This mission matters, she had told him. The princess is the key to our alliance with Volantis. If anything happens to her, the peace falls apart. And if the peace falls apart, humans become targets. Taeho understood. He would not fail. The days passed slowly on the ship. Taeho watched the princess from a distance. He noticed things that others did not see. During the formal dinners, she sat straight and spoke with perfect grace. But when she thought no one was looking, her hands would shake. Just a little. Just enough to notice. At night, she would stand by the window of her quarters and stare at the stars. There was something in her eyes that looked like sadness, or maybe loneliness. Taeho was not sure. He wondered what it was like to be her, born into power, expected to be perfect, surrounded by people but always alone. One night, Taeho was doing his usual patrol of the corridor outside the royal quarters. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew was asleep. The lights were dim. He heard a sound. It was soft, almost nothing. Just a small scrape of metal against metal. But Taeho had been a soldier for 8 years. He knew that sound. Someone was trying to open a door that should not be opened. He moved quickly and quietly. His hand went to the weapon at his side. He turned the corner and saw a figure in black clothes standing at the princess's door. The figure held a small device that was breaking through the lock. An assassin? Taeho did not hesitate. He rushed forward and grabbed the assassin from behind. The fight was short but violent. The assassin was fast and well trained. A blade came out and cut across Taeho's arm. Blood ran down to his hand. But Taeho was stronger. He twisted the assassin's arm until the weapon fell. Then he struck hard, once, twice, until the body went limp. The assassin was unconscious. Taeho stood over him, breathing hard. His arm was bleeding badly. The pain was sharp and hot. He looked at the princess's door. The lock was damaged, but not broken. She was safe. She had not even woken up. Taeho called for security on his communicator. He spoke quietly so he would not disturb the princess. When the other guards arrived, they took the assassin away. Taeho told them what happened. He did not mention his wound. "You should see a medic," one of the guards said, looking at the blood on his uniform. "Later," Taeho said. "I have to finish my patrol." He wrapped his arm with a piece of cloth and continued his duty. The pain was bad, but he had felt worse. On Earth, during his training, he had broken bones and kept going. This was nothing. The next morning, Princess Lyra came out of her quarters. Her silver hair was perfect. Her violet gown was beautiful. Her face showed no emotion at all. Then she stopped. She was looking at her door. There was blood on the handle. Taeho's blood. He had not noticed it last night. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was cold and sharp. Taeho stood at attention. "There was an incident last night, Princess. An intruder attempted to enter your quarters. He was stopped." Lyra's dark eyes moved to his arm. The cloth wrap was visible under his sleeve. The blood had soaked through. "You were injured," she said. "It was not a question." "A minor wound, Princess. It is nothing." She stared at him for a long moment. Her face was still cold, still perfect. But something in her eyes changed. It was small, almost impossible to see, but it was there. "What is your name?" she asked. Taeho was surprised. In 2 weeks, she had never asked his name. She had never spoken to him directly at all. "Kang Taeho, Princess." She repeated it quietly, as if testing how it sounded. "Kang Taeho." Then she turned and walked away without another word. But that night, something was different. When Taeho took his position at her door, she did not close it immediately. She stood in the doorway and looked at him. "You fought for me," she said. "You bled for me. Why?" Taeho was confused by the question. "It is my duty, Princess." "Duty," she repeated. The word seemed strange to her. "The Volantian guards would not have done what you did. They would have called for help. They would have waited for others. They would not have risked themselves." Taeho did not know what to say, so he said the truth. "I did not think about risk. I only thought about keeping you safe." Lyra looked at him for a long time. Her expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, something happened that Taeho had never seen before. She smiled. It was small, hesitant, like she was not used to smiling, but it was real. "Thank you, Kang Taeho," she said softly. Then she closed her door. Taeho stood at his post, his heart beating a little faster than before. He told himself it was nothing. She was a princess, he was a guard. There could be nothing between them. But as he stood there in the quiet corridor, watching the stars through the window, he could not stop thinking about that smile. Something had changed tonight. He did not know what it meant. He did not know where it would lead. But he knew that nothing would be the same again. She had been reading minds since she was a child. All Volantians could do this. They were born with the gift of feeling emotions, of sensing thoughts, of knowing what others felt before words were spoken. It was natural to them, like breathing. But Kang Taeho was different. When Lyra tried to sense his mind, she found only chaos. It was like looking into a storm. Thoughts moved too fast. Emotions crashed into each other like waves. There was no order, no calm, no peace. Just endless noise. Most species in the galaxy had simple minds. Clean minds, easy to read. But humans were messy. Their brains worked in strange ways that Volantians could not follow. It was frustrating. It was confusing. It was fascinating. Lyra began to watch Taeho more closely. She noticed how he stood perfectly still for hours. She noticed how his eyes were always moving, always watching for danger. She noticed the small scar on his left hand and the way he sometimes touched it without thinking. She wanted to know more. One evening, after a formal dinner with the ship's officers, Lyra asked Taeho to walk with her. The other guards looked surprised. The princess never spoke to humans more than necessary. But Taeho simply nodded and fell into step beside her. They walked through the observation deck, where large windows showed the endless stars outside. Lyra was quiet for a while. She did not know how to begin. "Tell me about your world," she finally said. Taeho looked at her with surprise. "Earth, Princess?" "Yes, I know nothing about it, only that it is small and far away." Taeho thought for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "Earth is a blue world," he said. "Most of it is covered in water. We call them oceans. They are so big that you cannot see the other side. The water moves in waves. and sometimes it crashes against the land with great power. Lyra tried to imagine this. Volantis was a world of crystal towers and glass plains. There was no free water, only controlled streams and artificial pools. What else? She asked. We have rain, Tejo said. Water falls from the sky, sometimes soft, like a gentle touch, sometimes hard, like small stones. When I was young, I would stand in the rain and let it wash over me. It felt like the world was cleaning itself. Lyra had never felt rain. The idea of water falling from above seemed strange and wonderful. And wind, Tejo continued. Air that moves. It can be warm or cold. It can whisper or scream. On Earth, there are places where the wind never stops. It shapes the rocks and bends the trees. It sounds chaotic, Lyra said. It is, Tejo agreed. But it is also beautiful. Chaos can be beautiful. Lyra looked at him. She thought about his chaotic mind, full of storms and noise. Maybe he was right. Maybe chaos could be beautiful. They walked in silence for a while. Then Lyra asked another question. Why did you become a soldier? Tejo did not answer immediately. His hand went to the scar on his left hand, touching it lightly. My father was a soldier, he said. He died when I was young. Protecting others. I wanted to be like him. You wanted to die? Lyra asked, confused. No, I wanted to protect. I wanted to keep people safe, even if it means putting myself in danger. He paused. Humans do not live long, princess. Not like Volantians. We have maybe 80 years, if we are lucky. So we try to make those years mean something. Lyra felt something strange in her chest. It was not pity. It was not sadness. It was something else, something she could not name. You are very different from what I expected, she said quietly. Tejo smiled slightly. What did you expect? I do not know. Something simpler, something easier to understand. Humans are never simple, Tejo said. We are full of contradictions. We fight and love. We destroy and create. We fear death but run toward it to save others. I know it does not make sense. No, Lyra said, but perhaps that is what makes you interesting. She returned to her quarters that night with many thoughts in her head. She had learned more about humans in one conversation than in years of diplomatic briefings. And she had learned something about Kang Tejo that surprised her. He was honest. In her life, everyone lied. Politicians spoke in careful words that meant nothing. Advisors told her what they thought she wanted to hear. Even her own father hid his true feelings behind a mask of royal dignity. But Tejo spoke plainly. He said what he meant. He did not try to impress her or manipulate her. He simply told the truth. It was strange. It was refreshing. It was dangerous. The next morning, Captain Yoon Sojin called Tejo to her office. She was sitting behind her desk, her face serious. I have received intelligence reports, she said. The assassination attempt was not random. There is a faction in the Volantian court that opposes the alliance with humans. They want the princess dead before she can make the peace official. Tejo felt his body tense. How serious is the threat? Very serious. They have resources. They have people inside the ship. We do not know who we can trust. The captain stood and walked to the window. The stars moved slowly past. I am telling you this because you are her closest guard. You need to be more careful than ever. Watch everyone. Trust no one. I understand, Tejo said. And Tejo, the captain added, her voice softer now, do not get attached. Tejo frowned. Captain, I see how you look at her, and I see how she looks at you. Sojin turned to face him. In this galaxy, humans are expendable. We have not earned our place yet. If something happens between you and the princess, it will not end well. For either of you, Tejo wanted to argue. He wanted to say that there was nothing between them, but he knew that would be a lie. I will do my duty, he said instead. The captain nodded. See that you do. That night, Lyra came to find Tejo at his post. She was wearing a simple gown instead of her formal robes. Her silver hair was loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, like this, more real. Walk with me again? She asked. Teho hesitated. He remembered the captain's warning, but when he looked into Lyra's dark eyes, he could not say no. They walked to the observation deck again. The stars were different now, new constellations appearing as the ship moved through space. I have been thinking about what you said, Lyra told him, about making your years mean something. I have lived much longer than you, Teho. I will live much longer still, but I do not know if my life means anything. You are a princess, Teho said. You will lead your people. I will do what I am told to do. I will marry who I am told to marry. I will say what I am told to say. Her voice was bitter. Is that a life? Teho did not know how to answer. He had always had choices. Hard choices, sometimes, but choices. He could not imagine living without them. Maybe things can change, he said finally. Lyra looked at him, and for the second time, she smiled. Maybe they can, she said. They stood together in the starlight, two people from different worlds, watching the universe pass by. Neither of them spoke, neither of them needed to. But somewhere in the darkness of space, enemies were watching, waiting, planning. The fragile peace was about to break. Teho was in his quarters, checking his weapons. When the first explosion hit, the floor shook. Alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed in the corridors. He was running before he could think. Only one thought was in his mind. Lyra. The second explosion was bigger. It tore through the ship's hull, somewhere on the lower decks. Teho felt the vibration in his bones. He could hear people screaming, could smell smoke in the air. He reached the royal quarters in less than 2 minutes. Other guards were already there, but they looked confused and scared. They were not fighters, they were ceremony guards, chosen for their appearance, not their skill. What is happening? One of them asked. We are under attack, Teho said. He pushed past them and opened the door. Lyra was inside, standing by the window. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, but she was alive. That was all that mattered. Teho, she said when she saw him. There was fear in her voice, but also relief. We need to move, he told her. The ship is being boarded. We have to get you to the escape pods. Boarded? By whom? I do not know, but we cannot stay here. He took her arm and pulled her toward the door. The other guards followed, but they were useless. Their hands were shaking. Their eyes were wide with terror. Valantians were not built for violence. Their bodies were delicate, their reflexes slow. They had never known war. Teho led them through the corridors. The ship was dying around them. Sparks flew from broken panels. Bodies lay on the floor, crew members who had been caught in the explosions. The smell of burning metal was everywhere. They reached a junction where 2 corridors met. Teho stopped and listened. He heard footsteps, many footsteps, coming fast. Hide, he whispered to Lyra, pushing her behind a support beam. The enemy came around the corner. There were 6 of them, dressed in black armor, carrying heavy weapons. Their faces were covered by masks. They moved like soldiers, professional and deadly. One of the Valantian guards panicked. He ran. The enemy shot him in the back without hesitation. Teho moved. He was fast, faster than the enemy expected. His first shot hit the lead soldier in the chest. His second shot took out the man's knee. Then he was among them, too close for them to use their rifles. He fought with his hands, his elbows, his knife. He broke bones and crushed throats. Blood splashed on the walls. When it was over, all 6 enemies were on the ground. Teho was breathing hard. His uniform was torn. A burn mark crossed his shoulder where a shot had grazed him. Lyra stared at him with wide eyes. She had never seen violence like this. She had never seen anyone move like that. How? She whispered. No time, Teho said. We keep moving. They found Nari at the next intersection. The young medic had a weapon in her hands and blood on her face, but she was alive. 2 other human soldiers were with her. Captain Sojin is dead, Nari said. Her voice was steady, but Teho could see the pain in her eyes. They hit the bridge first. No survivors. Teho felt something cold settle in his chest. The captain had been his mentor, his friend, but he could not mourn now. Later, if there was a later, escape pods, he said. Bay 7. It is the closest. They moved as a group. Nari took the front. The two soldiers covered the sides. Teho stayed close to Lyra, protecting her with his body. She was silent now, her face empty of expression. He knew she was in shock. He had seen it before, in soldiers during their first battle. The mind shut down to protect itself. They fought through 3 more groups of enemies. Each time, the humans threw themselves into combat with a ferocity that stunned their attackers. One soldier took a shot to the leg, but kept fighting. Another was slashed across the chest, but did not fall. Nari used her medical tools as weapons, injecting enemies with sedatives and poisons. But the cost was high. By the time they reached Base 7, only Teho, Nari, and Lyra remained. The other soldiers were dead, having given their lives to buy them time. The bay was empty, except for one escape pod. One single pod. It could hold 3 people, maybe 4, if they squeezed. And the enemies were coming. Teho could hear them, dozens of footsteps, getting closer. Get in, he said to Lyra. She looked at him. What about you? Someone has to hold them off. Give you time to launch. No, her voice cracked. No, you will come with us. There is no time. Teho pushed her toward the pod. Nari, take her. Nari grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her into the pod. Lyra fought, but she was weak, her body not made for struggle. Teho, she screamed. Please. He looked at her one last time. Her silver hair was tangled. Her violet skin was marked with dust and ash. Her dark eyes were full of tears. She was beautiful. She was everything. You made my life mean something, he said. Remember that. Then he sealed the pod. Lyra was pounding on the glass, screaming his name, but the sound was muffled now, distant. Teho turned to face the corridor. The enemies were almost there. He checked his weapon, half empty. He checked his knife, still sharp. He took a deep breath. Come on then, he said quietly. They came. The first wave was 10 soldiers. Teho killed them all. The second wave was larger, 15 maybe. He killed most of them before a shot hit his side. The pain was like fire. He kept fighting. Blood ran down his leg. His arm was broken. His vision was blurring. But every second he fought was another second for the pod to get further away. Another second for Lyra to be safe. The third wave pushed him back. He was against the wall now, surrounded. His gun was empty. His knife was red with blood. An enemy raised his weapon. Teho thought of earth. He thought of rain and wind and the smell of the ocean. He thought of his mother's face. He thought of Lyra's smile, that small, hesitant smile she had given him on their first night. He hoped she would be happy. He hoped she would live a good life. He hoped she would remember him. The weapon fired darkness, but not death. Not yet, because humans do not die easily. Their bodies are stubborn things. Their hearts keep beating long after they should stop. Their lungs keep pulling in air. Their brains keep fighting for one more second, one more moment, one more breath. Kang Teho fell to the ground, surrounded by the bodies of his enemies. His blood pooled on the cold metal floor. His eyes stared at nothing. But somewhere in his chest, his heart still beat. Weak, faint, dying, but still beating. And far away, in an escape pod flying through the darkness of space, Princess Lyra wept for the human who had given everything for her. The escape pod was small and cold. It drifted through space like a tiny seed in an endless black ocean. Inside, 2 people sat in silence. One was Nari, the human medic, who kept checking the distress signal to make sure it was working. The other was Princess Lyra, who had not spoken since they launched. She sat in the corner, her Her knees pulled to her chest, her silver hair covering her face. Her hands were shaking. Her breath came in short, painful gasps. She was breaking. Nari watched her with worried eyes. She had seen shock before. She had seen grief. But this was something else. This was a person falling apart from the inside. "Princess," Nari said softly, "you need to drink something. You need to stay strong." Lyra did not respond. She did not even move. Nari tried again. "Teho, he wanted you to live. He gave his life so you could escape. You have to honor that sacrifice." At the sound of his name, Lyra's head came up. Her dark eyes were red. Her violet skin was pale, almost white. She looked like a ghost. "He is dead," she whispered. "He is dead because of me. He is dead because he chose to protect you. That was his choice, his decision." "It should have been me," Lyra's voice broke. "I should have stayed. I should have fought. I should have done something. You would have died. And then his sacrifice would have meant nothing." Lyra closed her eyes. Tears ran down her face. But Volantians did not cry like humans. They did not produce water tears. Instead, their grief came out differently. A sound began to build in her chest, a keening, resonating hum that seemed to vibrate through the walls of the pod. It was the sound of Volantian mourning, a telepathic cry that echoed through the fabric of space itself. Nari covered her ears. The sound was painful, like needles in her brain. But she did not ask Lyra to stop. This was grief. This was loss. It needed to be released. The keening lasted for hours. It grew louder and louder until the whole pod seemed to shake with it. Then, slowly, it faded. Lyra slumped against the wall, exhausted. "I never told him," she said quietly. "I never told him how I felt." Nari moved closer. "How did you feel?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I had never met anyone like him. In my entire life, everyone has wanted something from me. Power, status, alliances. But Teho, he wanted nothing. He just wanted to protect me. Not because I was a princess, because I was a person." She looked at her hands. "When I was with him, I felt like I could be myself. Not the heir to the throne, not the symbol of peace, just Lyra. Just a girl looking at the stars." Nari reached out and took Lyra's hand. It was cold, like holding ice. "He knew," Nari said. "He knew how you felt. I could see it in the way he looked at you. Do you think he felt the same?" Nari remembered how Teho had spoken about the princess, how his eyes had softened when he said her name, how he had fought like a demon to keep her safe. "Yes," Nari said, "I think he did." Lyra closed her eyes again. More tears fell, but this time there was no keening, just quiet grief. Hours passed. The pod drifted on. The distress signal pulsed out into the void, a tiny cry for help in an infinite darkness. Then, finally, lights appeared in the window. Ships, Volantian ships, the royal fleet. Nari felt relief wash over her. They were saved. But when she looked at Lyra, she saw no happiness, only emptiness. The rescue ships docked with the pod. Soldiers in shining armor flooded in, surrounding Lyra, checking her for injuries. Officers barked orders. Medics pushed Nari aside. Lyra let them lead her away. She moved like a puppet, her body following commands while her mind was somewhere else. Somewhere on a dead ship, lying next to a fallen soldier. They brought her to the royal flagship. It was a massive vessel, gleaming with gold and crystal. The finest ship in the Volantian fleet. But Lyra did not care about its beauty. She did not care about anything. Her father was waiting for her. King Arian of Volantis was a tall man with silver hair and cold eyes. He wore robes of deep purple, the color of royalty. His face showed relief when he saw Lyra, but it quickly shifted back to its usual mask of calm authority. "My daughter," he said, embracing her briefly, "I am glad you are safe." "I am alive," Lyra replied. I do not know if I am safe. The king stepped back and looked at her. He could sense her emotions, could feel the storm of grief and loss inside her. But he chose to ignore it. You have been through a difficult experience, he said. You will rest, you will recover, and then we will discuss the future. The future, Lyra repeated. The word felt meaningless. The alliance with the humans must continue. The attack was the work of traitors, and they will be punished. But the peace is still important. Lyra felt anger rise in her chest. A man died for me. A good man. A human. And you speak of politics. The king's expression did not change. A human guard died doing his duty. That is what guards do. That is what they are for. Lyra stared at her father. She had always known he was cold. She had always known he saw people as tools, as pieces on a game board. But she had never felt it so clearly before. I want to send a recovery team, she said, to the horizon's edge, to bring back the bodies, to bring back Teho. Impossible, the king replied. The wreckage is in contested space. The faction that attacked you has claimed the territory. We cannot risk more lives for dead bodies. He deserves better than to be left floating in the void. He was a human. He does not deserve anything. The words hit Lyra like a blow. She felt something inside her snap, something that had been holding her together. Then I will go myself, she said. The king laughed. It was a cold, dismissive sound. You will do nothing of the sort. You are the heir to the throne. You will stay here where it is safe, and you will forget about this human. I will never forget him. Father and daughter stared at each other. The air between them was thick with tension. Finally, the king turned away. You are tired and emotional. We will speak again when you are thinking clearly. He left the room. Lyra stood alone, her hands clenched into fists. She would not forget. She would not move on. And she would not abandon Teho to the darkness of space. That night, she made a decision that would change everything. She called her most loyal servants. She gathered supplies and weapons. She commandeered a stealth ship from the royal fleet. And before dawn, she was gone, flying toward the wreckage, flying toward the man she loved. The king's guards discovered she was missing hours later. By then, it was too late. The princess had vanished into the stars. Nari, who had been kept on the flagship for questioning, heard the news. She smiled despite the fear in her heart. That's the Lyra Teho knew, she whispered to herself. That's the woman he died for. And somewhere in the darkness of space, on a dead ship full of bodies, Kang Teho's heart continued to beat, waiting, fighting, refusing to die. The stealth ship moved through space like a shadow. Its hull was coated with materials that absorbed scanner signals. Its engines were quiet, almost silent. It was designed for secret missions, for infiltration, for things the royal family did not want others to know about. Now, it carried Princess Lyra toward the graveyard of the horizon's edge. She had brought a small crew with her, loyal Volantians who believed in her, who were willing to risk their lives for their princess. There was also a human medic they had picked up along the way, a friend of Nari's who had heard about the rescue mission. The medic's name was Jimin. He was young, barely older than Lyra, with nervous hands and determined eyes. He had brought human medical supplies, things the Volantians did not have. I studied human physiology, he had told Lyra when he joined. If Teho is alive, I can help. Lyra had not asked how likely that was. She did not want to know. She needed hope, even false hope. It was the only thing keeping her moving. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of silence and fear. 3 days of staring at the stars and wondering what they would find. When they finally reached the coordinates, Lyra's heart sank. The horizon's edge was a ruin. Half the ship was gone, torn apart by explosions. The rest was dark and dead, floating in a cloud of debris. Bodies drifted among the wreckage, frozen in the vacuum of space. Life signs? Lyra asked. The officer at the scanner shook his head. None detectable. But our equipment is not designed for human biology. They are different. Different. Lyra remembered Tejo saying that. Humans are never simple. They are full of contradictions. We board, she said. We search every room, every corridor, every corner. We do not leave until we find him. The crew nodded. They put on their suits and prepared the boarding shuttle. The interior of the Horizon's Edge was worse than the exterior. Blood covered the walls. Bodies lay everywhere, twisted and broken. The lights were dead. The only illumination came from their suit lamps, thin beams cutting through the darkness. Lyra forced herself to look at each face they passed. Volantian, human, attacker, crew, all dead, all gone. She felt sick, she felt terrified, but she did not stop. They reached the escape pod bay after an hour of searching. The corridor leading to it was a scene of horror. Bodies were piled on top of each other. The walls were scarred with weapon fire. The floor was slick with frozen blood. Lyra counted the bodies. 17 attackers, all dead. And there, at the end of the corridor, slumped against the wall, was Kang Tejo. He was not moving. His eyes were closed. His skin was gray and cold. His body was covered in wounds. So many wounds that Lyra could not count them. His uniform was soaked with frozen blood. She fell to her knees beside him. "Tejo," she whispered. "Tejo, please." No response, no movement, nothing. Jimin pushed past her, his medical scanner already active. He waved it over Tejo's body, his eyes fixed on the screen. His expression was tense, focused. "I do not understand," he muttered. "What?" Lyra demanded. "What is it?" "He has been here for almost 4 days. His injuries are catastrophic. Blood loss, organ damage, broken bones." Jimin shook his head. "He should be dead. He should have died within minutes of these wounds." But Jimin looked at her with something like awe in his eyes. "His heart is still beating." Lyra felt the world stop. Time froze. She could not breathe. "How?" she whispered. "I do not know. Human biology is incredible, but this is beyond anything I have studied." Jimin was already pulling out equipment, working with frantic speed. His body has somehow slowed itself down, reduced its needs to almost nothing. It is like he put himself into a coma to survive. "Can you save him?" "I do not know, but I will try." The next few hours were a blur of activity. They carried Tejo back to the stealth ship. Jimin worked without stopping, injecting medicines, attaching machines, doing everything he could to stabilize the broken body. Lyra stayed by Tejo's side the entire time. She held his cold hand. She talked to him, telling him about the stars outside, about the future they could have, about anything she could think of. And through her telepathic senses, she reached out to his mind. It was chaos, as always, but now it was dim, faded, like a fire almost burned out. She could feel fragments of thoughts, broken pieces of memory. She saw Earth through his eyes, saw rain falling on a gray city. She saw a woman's face, smiling, crying, saying goodbye. She saw herself standing in starlight, smiling at him. She felt his determination, weak but still there. A single thought repeated over and over: "Keep her safe, keep her safe, keep her safe." "You kept your promise," Lyra whispered, tears running down her face. "You kept me safe. Now let me save you." She poured her own energy into him. It was dangerous, a technique that Volantians only used in extreme circumstances. It could kill her if she gave too much, but she did not care. She would give everything for him. The ship raced back toward Volantian space. Jimin called for emergency medical support. Nari was waiting when they arrived, having convinced the authorities to allow her to help. Together, the 2 human medics worked on Tejo. They combined their techniques with Volantian technology, using healing machines designed for delicate alien bodies on a stubborn human one. It should not have worked. The differences between species were too great. The damage was too severe. But somehow, impossibly, Teho began to stabilize. His heart grew stronger. His wounds began to close. Color returned to his skin. His breathing deepened. Lyra watched it all from the corner of the room. She was exhausted, drained from the energy she had given him, but she could not look away. She could not leave. 3 days after the rescue, Jimin came to her with news. "He is going to live," he said, tears in his eyes. "I do not know how, I do not know why, but he is going to live." Lyra felt her legs give out. She sank into a chair, her body shaking with relief. "Humans," Jimin continued, shaking his head in wonder, "they are the most stubborn species in the galaxy. Their bodies refuse to give up. Their minds refuse to accept death. I have never seen anything like it." Lyra thought about what Teho had told her, about how humans made their short lives mean something. She understood now. They made their lives mean something by refusing to let go, by fighting until the very end. And Teho had fought harder than anyone. She went to his room and sat in the chair beside his bed. She took his hand, warm now instead of cold. She watched his chest rise and fall with steady breaths. "I am here," she said softly. "I will be here when you wake up. I will always be here." Outside the window, the stars shone bright. The Volantian fleet surrounded them, protecting them. The king had been furious when Lyra returned, but he could not argue with her success. She had done the impossible. And somewhere in the darkness of sleep, Kang Teho began the long journey back to consciousness. He had been gone. He had felt death's cold hand on his shoulder, but something had pulled him back. A voice, a presence, a promise. He was coming home. It was strange. He had been cold for so long, cold and dark and alone. He remembered pain. He remembered fighting. He remembered the feeling of life draining out of his body, like water from a broken cup. He remembered thinking it was the end. But now there was warmth and light, soft and gentle, pressing against his closed eyelids. And something else, a sound, someone breathing, someone close. He opened his eyes. The room was white and bright. Medical equipment beeped softly around him. The air smelled clean, like flowers and medicine mixed together. It was not a human room. The shapes were wrong, the colors too soft. He was alive. He was somewhere else. He had survived. And there, in a chair beside his bed, was Princess Lyra. She was asleep. Her head was resting on the edge of the mattress. Her silver hair spread out like moonlight on water. Her face was peaceful, but there were marks on her cheeks, dried crystalline residue that looked like frozen tears. She had been crying. For him, Teho tried to speak, but his throat was dry. Only a small sound came out, a whisper that was barely there. But it was enough. Lyra's eyes snapped open. She sat up fast, her gaze finding his face. For a moment, she just stared at him. Her dark eyes were wide, with shock and hope and fear all mixed together. "Teho," she breathed. He managed a small smile. His lips were cracked, his face stiff. Everything hurt. But seeing her made the pain feel far away. "You came back for me," he said. His voice was rough, broken. Lyra took his hand. Her grip was tight, like she was afraid he would disappear. "You came back from death," she replied. Her voice trembled. "I think that makes us even." Teho wanted to laugh, but his body would not allow it. He settled for squeezing her hand weakly. "How long?" he asked. "Almost a week since we found you. 10 days since the attack." Lyra's eyes filled with tears again. "The doctors said you should not have survived. No one could explain it. Your body just refused to die." Teho thought about that. He remembered the darkness, the cold. He remembered fighting against something invisible, something that wanted to pull him under. He had fought because he had made a promise. Keep her safe. That promise had been like a rope pulling him back to the light. Humans are stubborn, he said quietly. Lyra laughed. It was a wet sound, mixed with crying. Yes, I am learning that. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding hands, just being together. Outside the window, Tejo could see strange stars and a planet with rings of crystal floating around it. They were far from Earth, far from everything he knew, but with Lyra beside him, he felt like he was home. Over the next few days, Tejo slowly recovered. His body healed faster than the Valantian doctors expected. They studied him like he was a strange creature, taking samples and running tests. Jimin explained that human biology was amazing, the medical community. You should have died 17 times over, Jimin told him one afternoon. I counted 17 separate injuries that should have been fatal, but your body just kept going. Humans are too stupid to know when to quit, Nari added with a smile. She had been allowed to stay on the Valantian ship as a medical consultant. It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. Tejo appreciated their humor. He needed it, because outside the medical bay, things were not going well. Lyra came to see him every day. But he could see the worry in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. Something was wrong. Tell me, he said one evening, what is happening? Lyra hesitated. She looked at the door, making sure they were alone. My father is angry, she said. I disobeyed him. I risked my life. I brought a human into the heart of the royal fleet. She paused. There are those in the court who want you gone. They say you are dangerous. They say you will corrupt me. Corrupt you? They mean change me. Make me think differently. Lyra smiled sadly. They are right about that, I suppose. You have changed me, Tejo, more than anyone. Tejo felt a knot form in his chest. I should leave. I am putting you in danger. No, Lyra's voice was sharp. I did not cross the galaxy to save you just so you could leave. I will not lose you again. The galaxy thinks humans are nothing, Tejo said. I am just a soldier. You are a princess. There is no future for us. Lyra took his hand. Her dark eyes burned with determination. Then we will make a new future. We will show them that humans are not nothing. We will prove them wrong together. Tejo wanted to believe her. He wanted it more than anything. But he knew how the universe worked. Power and politics did not care about love. They crushed anything that threatened them. Still, looking into her eyes, he could not say no. Together, he agreed. The days that followed were difficult. Tejo left the medical bay and entered the world of the Valantian court. It was a strange place, full of beautiful people in beautiful clothes, speaking beautiful lies. Everyone smiled at him while their eyes stayed cold. Everyone was polite while planning his destruction. He learned to navigate it. He had been a soldier, but he was not stupid. He watched and listened and learned. He found allies in unexpected places. Junior nobles who respected his courage, servants who had heard the story of his sacrifice. Even some members of the old guard who believed that strength, not birth, should determine worth. But his greatest ally was Lyra herself. She stood beside him at every ceremony. She defended him at every meeting. When courtiers whispered insults, she silenced them with a look. When politicians demanded he be sent away, she threatened to renounce her claim to the throne. She would give up everything for you, Nari observed one day. That is either incredibly romantic or incredibly foolish. Maybe both, Tejo replied. The faction that had tried to kill Lyra was still out there. They had gone quiet after their failed attack, but everyone knew they were planning something. The king sent spies and soldiers to find them, but they were ghosts, hidden in the shadows of the empire. Tejo knew they would come for him eventually. He was a symbol now, whether he wanted to be or not. A human who had earned the love of a princess. A reminder that the old ways could change. And change was what the faction feared most. One night, Lyra came to his quarters. Her face was troubled. My father summoned me, she said. He has given an ultimatum. Either you leave Volantis within the week, or I will be removed from the line of succession. Teho felt cold. Then I will leave. No, Lyra stepped closer. I told him, I choose you. Teho stared at her. You would give up the throne for me? The throne means nothing if I cannot be with the person I love. She touched his face gently. You taught me that, Teho. You taught me that life is about more than duty and power. It is about connection, about meaning. Teho pulled her close. He could feel her heart beating against his chest. She was so delicate, so fragile. And yet, she was the strongest person he had ever known. I do not deserve you, he whispered. That is for me to decide, she replied. And I have decided. They held each other in the starlight. Two people from different worlds, standing against an empire. They did not know what tomorrow would bring. They did not know if they would win or lose, but they knew one thing for certain. They would face it together. Teho woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed in his quarters. He was on his feet before he was fully awake, reaching for the weapon he kept beside his bed. Something was wrong. This was not a drill. He ran through the corridors of the royal palace. Guards were everywhere, shouting orders, forming defensive lines. But something about their movements was wrong. Some of them were moving too slowly. Others were blocking paths instead of protecting them. Traitors. They were inside the palace. Teho did not hesitate. He cut through a group of false guards, his blade moving in deadly arcs. They had expected him to be weak, still recovering from his wounds. They were wrong. He had been training every day since he woke up. His body was not what it had been, but his skills were still sharp. He reached Lyra's quarters as a team of assassins was breaking down her door. There were 8 of them, professionals, armed and armored. Teho killed 3 before they knew he was there. The fight was brutal and fast. He used everything he had learned in years of combat. He used his fists and his blade and the walls themselves. He took hits that would have killed a Volantian, but he did not fall. He could not fall. Not when she needed him. When the last assassin dropped, Teho was bleeding from a dozen cuts. His left arm was numb. His vision was blurring at the edges. The door opened. Lyra stood there, a weapon in her hand. Her silver hair was wild, her eyes fierce. She had been ready to fight. Are you hurt? She asked. I will live, Teho replied. We need to move. There will be more. They moved through the palace together. Along the way, they gathered allies, loyal guards who had not been corrupted, servants who took up weapons for their princess, even Jimin and Nari, who had refused to leave the planet. The battle raged through the night. The faction had planned well. They had soldiers hidden throughout the city, agents in every level of the government. It should have been a complete victory, but they had not expected the humans. Teho led a small team through the heart of the enemy's assault. They moved faster than the attackers expected, hit harder than they thought possible. When a corridor was blocked, they found another way. When they were outnumbered, they fought anyway. And Lyra fought beside them. She was not strong like a human. Her body was still delicate, still fragile, but she had learned to use what she had. Her telepathic abilities let her sense attacks before they came. Her quick mind let her find weaknesses in the enemy's formations. And her determination made her dangerous in ways no one had expected. By dawn, the faction was broken. Their leaders were captured or dead. Their soldiers surrendered in droves. The conspiracy that had plagued the Volantian Empire for years was finally ended, and at the center of it all stood a human soldier and an alien princess, covered in blood and ash, but alive. Together, the king arrived with the morning sun. He walked through the ruined hallways of his palace, his face unreadable. He saw the bodies. He saw the destruction. He saw his daughter standing with the human he had ordered to leave. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the king stopped in front of Teho. He looked at the human with eyes that had seen centuries of politics and war. You protected her, the king said. Again. Yes, Teho replied simply. Why? You owe nothing to our people. We have treated you as less than nothing. Why do you keep fighting for us? Taeho thought about the question. He thought about duty and honor and all the reasons a soldier fights. But those were not the real answer. I do not fight for your people, he said. I fight for her because she matters to me, and because protecting people who matter is what humans do. He looked at Lyra. She looked back at him, her eyes full of love. We protect the people who matter, Taeho repeated, no matter the cost. The king was silent for a long time. Something changed in his face. Something old and hard seemed to crack, just a little. My daughter has chosen you, he said finally. I have fought against this choice. I have tried to separate you. I have used every power I have. He paused. And I have failed. Every time. Lyra stepped forward. Father, the king raised his hand. Let me finish. He looked at Taeho again. I do not understand humans. You are strange and chaotic and impossible, but I cannot deny what you have done. You have saved my daughter twice. You have broken the conspiracy that threatened my throne. You have proven yourself in ways that no Volantian ever could. He took a deep breath. I will not fight this anymore. If Lyra chooses you, then I must accept that choice. Lyra felt tears running down her face. You mean? I mean that this human has earned his place. The king's voice was heavy but sincere. He will be recognized as your chosen consort. He will have a position of honor in our court. And he will be protected as a member of the royal family. The gathered crowd gasped. This was unprecedented. No alien had ever been granted such status. No human had ever stood so high in the galactic order. Taeho felt the weight of the moment. He understood what it meant, not just for him and Lyra, but for all of humanity. He bowed to the king, not as a servant, but as an equal. I will spend my life proving worthy of this trust, he said. The king nodded. See that you do. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change. News of Taeho's new status spread across the galaxy. Humans everywhere celebrated. They had been seen as primitives, as lesser beings. Now one of their own stood beside alien royalty. HFY movements grew stronger. Humanity's reputation began to shift. They were no longer the newcomers to be ignored. They were survivors, protectors, equals. And at the center of it all, Kang Taeho and Princess Lyra built their new life together. It was not easy. There were still those who opposed them. There were still challenges to face, battles to fight, prejudices to overcome. But they faced it all together. 1 year after the attack on the horizon's edge, Taeho stood on the crystal balcony of the Volantian palace. The stars above were strange and beautiful. The city below sparkled with lights. In his pocket was a letter from his mother. She was adjusting to the idea that her son was now essentially an alien prince. She was proud, she was confused, she was happy. Lyra joined him on the balcony. She slipped her hand into his. What are you thinking about? She asked. Taeho looked at her. Her silver hair glowed in the starlight. Her dark eyes held more warmth than he had ever seen. I was thinking about how I almost died, he said, and how I woke up to find an alien princess weeping by my side. Lyra smiled. I was not weeping. I was experiencing emotional distress in a culturally appropriate manner. Taeho laughed. It was a real laugh, full and happy, something he had not done in a long time. Any regrets? Lyra asked. Taeho thought about everything he had been through, the pain, the fear, the near-death experiences, the political battles, the weight of representing his entire species. Then he looked at Lyra, the woman who had crossed a galaxy to save him, the woman who had given up everything for him, the woman who made his life mean something. Not one, he said. Above them, a human cargo ship passed through Volantian space, one of hundreds that now traveled freely between the worlds. The alliance held, the peace was strong, and it had started with one soldier who refused to die and one princess who refused to let him go. The stars shone bright. The future was uncertain, but together they could face anything. This was not an ending. It was a beginning.